Video games really are great, aren't they? They can be a way to keep in touch with friends or connect with family, and they tell stories that could never be done through any other medium. A good narrative can make us laugh, cry, or shock us to our very cores. While it's true that not all games are meant to tell a story, many of them do, and it's all the more impressive when they're able to do so with no words. There are a number of titles that do this quite well, and we're here to highlight some of them today. Before we get into this list, it's important to clarify what exactly we mean by hardly any dialogue. The primary rule is that not much is said by any of the characters, and thus a large part of the storytelling is left up to the environment or the player's own interpretation. In addition, any in-game text, such as signs, notes, and item descriptions, are perfectly acceptable. Essentially, as long as direct exposition is limited, a game is welcome here. I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 great video games with hardly any dialogue. Number 10, Shadow of the Colossus. Now I can already hear you yelling at me about how far down this list the game is, but put the pitchforks down. Shadow of the Colossus is not in the number 10 spot because it's bad, far from it in fact. However, it does have a lot more dialogue than most of the other entries here, so I have to put it at the bottom, I'm afraid. Them's the rules. Developed by Japan's studio and Team Eco, both of whom we'll see again shortly, Shadow of the Colossus originally released on PS2 in 2005 and was remade for the PlayStation 4 in 2018. It follows the story of Wanda, who's brought a woman named Mono to the Shrine of Worship in order to revive her. Once here, he meets mysterious multi-layered voice in the sky Dormin. Rather than this intimidating presence setting off any alarm bells, Wanda takes their advice, as they're known to have the power to resurrect the dead, and at their behest, he sets out to destroy the colossi dotted throughout the otherwise barren land. Much of the story after that comes from the big hulking boys, or girls, or others themselves, and the crippling feeling of wrongness that comes from destroying them. I'm sure everything's above board though, right? Number 9, Eco. See? I said we'd be seeing Japan Studio and Team Eco again, didn't I? While there is some speech throughout, Eco has little dialogue that is directly story related. This comes mainly from the fact that the player character, also called Eco, and the girl accompanying him, Yorda, speak completely different languages. At the beginning of the game, Eco is taken to a seemingly abandoned castle and stuck inside a stone coffin in order to be sacrificed. All because of the horns on his head. Thankfully though, an earthquake breaks open the coffin and allows him to escape, after which he meets the mysterious girl who was also held captive. Even though the two have no way to speak to each other, they form a bond, and Yorda accompanies Eco as he helps her to escape from her mother, the Queen. Using both characters, players solve a variety of puzzles as they explore the castle and try to avoid the shadowy monsters that lurk around every corner. Yes, that does essentially make the whole game one big escort mission, but who doesn't love those? I'm joking, of course, but the story more than makes up for it, so we'll give it a pass. Number 8, Virginia. Taking its cues primarily from 90s TV shows like Twin Peaks and The X-Files, the often baffling detective game Virginia is set in the US state of the same name. This multi-layered mystery manages to weave its wordless story over the course of a single in-game week, and brings an intriguing amount of Lynchian weirdness to the table, with a narrative that will take some time and potentially multiple playthroughs to fully understand. Players assume the role of Detective Anne Tarver, a recent graduate and rookie FBI agent. Accompanied by senior agent Maria Halperin, she is tasked with searching for a missing boy, Lucas. However, Anne has a questionable secondary objective thrust upon her by the head of the Bureau: spy on her fellow investigator. What follows is a series of jump cuts, flashbacks, and bizarre bison-based visions, as the two patrol the small fictional town of Kingdom, questioning Lucas's family and trying to follow in the boy's footsteps in order to find him. There's also a mystery surrounding Anne's mother, who was herself an FBI agent. The investigation links up with Anne's secondary spy operation, revealing a bureau-wide conspiracy. While it received a mixed reception upon its release in 2016, Virginia might just go against your expectations? Ugh, awful joke, moving on. Number 7, A Bird Story. A Bird Story comes from the appropriately named Freebird Games, developers of the heart-wrenching To the Moon, and serves as a link between that game and its sequel, Finding Paradise. Despite the title suggesting you might play as some sort of feathered flyer, this game instead follows a young boy named Colin and his wild imagination. Colin spends a lot of time being quiet and alone, as his parents are always working and he has no real friends in his class. He's often chastised by his teachers for escaping into his imagination. Or maybe it's because kids are horrible little monsters and his classmates blame things on him. He feels so disconnected and unwilling to speak to others that almost everyone in the game appears as an unknowable shadowy figure. One day though, he finds an injured bird and brings it to the vet. Unwilling to abandon it, Colin takes it under his wing. No pun intended, sneaking it home in his backpack and caring for it as best he can. He finds himself connecting more and more to his avian friend, and the more affection he feels for it, the more he finds himself able to relate to other people as well. The experience as a whole isn't very long, but the story is sure to nest itself in your heart. Number 6, Rime. I don't know about you, but I could go for a lovely island holiday right about now. All of this British weather really is a bummer. Well, Rime is a gorgeous adventure game that allows you to dodge the rain and go somewhere sunny. Otherwise known as the adorable little fox game by absolutely no one but our writer, Rime is another title that follows a young boy as he adventures through the world. This time though, progression is based primarily on puzzles, and players have to solve them by using perspective and occasional shouting. The boy, not the player. Although I suppose that depends on how frustrated you get. As the boy makes his way to and through the large tower that dominates the landscape, there will be occasional visits from a mysterious figure in a bright red cloak. Though the figure never speaks and is often only seen in the distance, it becomes clear that they are more than they appear. These sightings, along with various murals, trigger memories for the boy of a horrible storm and a tragedy at sea. Its joyful Wind Waker-esque colour palette and fantastic soundtrack can be deceptive, as they hide a sad story behind them. But it has a cute fox, and that alone is worth the emotional damage, surely. Number 5, Unravel. Memories. They can be good, they can be bad, and sometimes the most embarrassing ones you have can pop into your brain at the absolute worst moment possible. Could you leave me alone, please? I'm trying to sleep. Yarn-filled puzzle adventure Unravel, on the other hand, uses memories as a setting for a variety of gorgeous levels. At the start, we see an older woman as she looks wistfully out of the window, before picking up a ball of yarn and inadvertently allowing Yarny to manifest. As he wanders uninvited through the house, he comes across a variety of framed photos, each of which offer its own unique level and memory to interact with. Yarny is able to literally become unraveled in order to help him on his way, using his own body as a means to create bridges and ramps, or pull himself up onto high ledges. As players help Yarny finish levels, they will collect both photos and badges, which will appear in an album back in the starting room. Since they encompass a whole life, not all of these will be happy, but they are important to keep. Terrifying yarn-based implications aside, both Unravel and its sequel provide a great experience. I'd keep an eye on those craft supplies though if I were you. Number 4, Another World. Don't you just hate it when you're at work and then suddenly get zapped to another planet? I tell ya, if I had a quid for every time that happened. This is something that the protagonist of brutal point-and-click adventure Another World, or Out of This World if you want to get North American about this, is all too familiar with. Referred to only as Professor in-game, physicist Lester is going about his day in charge of the particle accelerator when a bolt of lightning suddenly targets the machine. This naturally causes some problems, the biggest one being that the experiment is most likely ruined. Oh, and Lester is suddenly transported through time and space to worlds doing all it can to kill him. That's probably pretty bad too, right? Once he's able to get past all of the murderous alien wildlife, he lands himself in alien prison, but is soon able to escape with an alien captive and eventually leave the whole alien planet behind. Is the word alien starting to sound alien to anyone else? Since it was originally released in 1991, it's fair to say that Another World isn't nearly as well known nowadays as it once was, even though it did get a 20th anniversary edition. If you're willing to endure the strange point-and-click logic though, you're in for an otherworldly adventure. Number 3, Hyper Light Drifter. Taking its gameplay cues mainly from The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past and Diablo, SNES-inspired Hyper Light Drifter was released in 2016. It sees players assuming the role of the Drifter, a mysterious figure who has both technological prowess beyond anyone else in their world, and also a debilitating disease. Pretty much the definition of you win some, you lose some there. This infliction, though, drives the Drifter forward to adventure and battle, as they attempt to find some sort of cure for their condition. Even though the world is filled with monsters, they're able to fight back using a combination of sword, gun, and AoE attacks. On the rare occasion the Drifter does meet a friendly face, they will communicate to each other through images only, giving concise and informative clues about what's happening in the world and what the Drifter can expect to be going up against in the future. Most of the time it involves fighting even more rock-hard enemies, to be honest, but at least you've been given a heads up. However, these images work in tandem with the sights and sounds of the world to create an intriguing adventure full of mystery and danger. In short, this isn't a game that will cause you to drift off to sleep. Number 2, Machinarium. With an original release date of 2009 and enough ports to rival Skyrim, robot adventure Machinarium is a newer twist on the point-and-click genre. One important difference is that any objects pointed and clicked on have to be within reach of the player character. Player robot? You get the idea. Down on his luck, bot Joseph wakes up in a scrap heap and has to pull himself together in order to get back to town. We've all had nights like that, eh? Though, I can't say I've had to fish my own arm out of a lake. Anyway, once he's able to make it past the intimidating guards and bullies, Joseph discovers a secret plot that threatens to destroy the city. As he rushes through town to foil this plan, he finds out that his girlfriend Berta has been kidnapped, and one of his friends has had his sanity compromised. Other than a few tutorial info blurbs at the beginning of the game, there's no dialogue whatsoever, so players have to rely solely on thought bubbles to show them where to go next. There is also a hint system and in-game walkthroughs, but these too are image-based. Not that us brainiacs here at Team TripleJump would need such assistance, because we're smart. And number 1, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. The beautiful and upsetting adventure game, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, has a complex story, an interesting world, and puzzles that involve some massive brain flexing. The central premise is that players guide one of the titular brothers with one of the analog sticks and the other with the other. Each trigger is also linked to just one of the children, and by their powers combined, they can solve puzzles and help each other to accomplish things which wouldn't be possible alone. All of this makes for some truly unique and truly confusing gameplay. Once players are able to wrap their heads around the controls, however, they'll be treated to a memorable story. Older brother Naya and younger brother Nai take their ailing father to the doctor in town, only to be told they'd have to get water from the Tree of Life to cure him properly. The two then set out on a journey through the mountains, dodging threats and helping people they meet when they're able to. This trusting nature ends up harming them in ways they couldn't have predicted, however, and their lives are changed forever. Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons? More like Brothers, A Tale of Too Much Sad Stuff? Got 'em? Yeah, I don't feel good about that one either.